Indiana on the road this weekend in football at Cincinnati, a game that started out as like an 8-point line and jumped to 17, which was crazy. And Vegas is usually pretty good at what they do. I'm having a hard time rectifying that in my mind, but this Indiana team has had issues with offense. They've had great moments, but they've had big voids in between. The defense has played okay, but the tackling has still been an issue. And Cincinnati is a team that once they get it together, they're very talented. They've got 85% of their team back from a college football playoff team. So this is going to be a tough challenge for Indiana in a tough environment in that little bandbox of a stadium at Nippert Stadium.
Yeah, I mean, it should be said, like, that is not an easy place to play. And, I mean, this is a program that's accustomed to winning, and not just under Luke Fickell. Like, think about
30, I think they have a 30-game winning streak there right now, don't they?
Yeah, something like that. But I'm even thinking, I mean, like, Mark D'Antonio got to, was at Cincinnati before Michigan State. Brian Kelly was at Cincinnati before Notre Dame. Butch Jones was at Cincinnati before Tennessee. They've done a lot of
great coaches.
A lot of winning. Like, even if you go look at, like, Tommy Tuberville, like, he wasn't anywhere near what those guys did. He still won. He just didn't win nearly what they did, and so it didn't feel like it was going to be sustainable. They wanted to move on. That's a place that expects to win. It is obviously a place that I think, it is a matchup. To your point, Cincinnati does not feel like the finished article themselves in the way that they would have last year, where you would have known these are the alphas. This is how it works. This is what it looks like. This is what they do. I am a little bit surprised, and I think you were kind of saying this too, at the gap between Indiana and, whether it's the computer projections or where Vegas is at. I think Indiana should be an underdog. I think, frankly, unless some things change, and they may, Indiana's going to be an underdog just about every game from here on out. Maybe Maryland at home, the exception. Maybe Rutgers on the road, another exception. But I don't think Cincinnati is perfect in some way that Indiana can't touch. And I am curious just at how this game goes, because I think it is the sort of game where Indiana could go there and Cincinnati could cover, and Indiana could lose, 45-21, Indiana could lose 45-21, and we'd all say, well, okay, it's clear this team's still got some work to do. That not everything was going to get fixed overnight. This doesn't derail all their ambitions for the season. But if Indiana goes there and puts in a really scrappy performance, certainly if Indiana goes there and wins, you start to feel like maybe this team has something about it. I had Bill Connolly on our podcast this week, and he said, he basically just said, like, Northwestern does this once every few years, where they're not really, the computers don't love them, the rankings don't love them, but they just find a way to win a lot of one-score games, and suddenly they're 10-3. I don't think Indiana's going 10-3, to be very clear, but teams do this sometimes, where they basically just, while they are still imperfect, while they are still growing and learning and figuring out how to be the best version of themselves, they close enough gaps to win the close games. And then as the season rolls along, they get better and better. And then, at the end of the year, they're 8-4, 9-3. I think in Indiana's case, optimistic would be more like 7-5. But I don't think that's out of the question. I do think this is maybe the first game Indiana's played where, on the one hand, Indiana could lose by a comfortable margin Saturday, and you wouldn't feel like it was reflective of basically some fatal flaw. But on the other hand, if this makes any sense, a game that feels like it's going to prove something to us about Indiana. And I don't know if I can quite square those statements, because they do feel a little bit opposite.
I said that last week, and I was not quite right.
Well,
I thought that would be the game, but it wasn't.
I think Western Kentucky is a good team. They're a good program. I wasn't surprised that game. I mean, how it actually unfolds. Obviously, Indiana needing Western Kentucky to miss a kick and they block a kick. Sure, that's low percentage. If you told me Indiana was going to win 33-30, I would have been like, yeah, that sounds about right.
It's like last year.
with Cincinnati, and Illinois was this way a little bit too, but Cincinnati in particular, this is the sort of game that you look at and say, if you can be competitive, if you can take it down to the wire, certainly if you can win in Cincinnati, then Rutgers on the road is in play. Maryland and Purdue at home are in play. Nebraska on the road is in play. Maybe even something like a Penn State at home, or if the stars align for you and Michigan State on the road is in play. You go to Cincinnati and you lose comfortably. You like the Bearcats cover. Then maybe we go back to seeing this team. It's like, okay, maybe 6 is the hard ceiling, and it's a question of whether or not they can get to 6-6. I just think that this is the biggest challenge Indiana's had to this point, and all offseason. And I know we're running short, so I'll keep it brief as I can here. I ramble. All offseason, we said these first 5 weeks were going to be so telling for Indiana because they needed to beat Illinois to get off to the good start. They needed to win their next 2 because you can't go to a bowl game if you don't win those games. No matter how you win them, you just need to win them and move on. And then you had these 2, Cincinnati and Nebraska, both on the road. These are the games that tell you, like, is Indiana going to be able to compete against the serious teams it has to beat to get to a bowl game? And the answer is yes.